A July 4th marred by gun violence.
This country needs to re-examine its conscience and find out how to get guns out of dangerous people's hands.
Several cities across America caught in the crosshairs of an epidemic that continues to take lives, even as millions gather to celebrate this Independence Day. The investigation's underway. Plus, 1 year after that fatal shooting in Highland Park, a sign and a symbol of resilience at the American Family Field as one of the youngest victims of that attack goes before the crowd and the world for a first pitch to remember. And
one day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go.
They are among the most talented musicians in the country, and they're also some of the bravest men and women. This 4th of July, we introduce you to the U.S. Navy Band. Good evening and happy 4th of July. I'm Phil Lipoff in tonight for Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We are, of course, following those stories and much more, including a deadly alligator attack near a golf course in Hilton Head, the second fatal attack in just under a year. Plus, July 4th is celebrated in true American fashion with none other than Joey Chestnut hoisting his Nathan Hot Dogs trophy for the 16th time. We go behind all the American traditions being celebrated on this Independence Day by the numbers. And fireworks or drones, why some cities are skipping fireworks for drone light shows as they find new ways to celebrate the 4th. Our correspondents are fanned out across the country covering those stories and more for us tonight. But we are going to begin with what is unfortunately as American as fireworks on the 4th of July. And that's another string of mass shootings in this country. Overnight in Philadelphia, surveillance video capturing the disturbing scene. A gunman carrying an AR-style rifle randomly shooting, killing 5 and wounding 2 more. The suspect now in custody. In Fort Worth, Texas, authorities are investigating a deadly shooting there. 3 killed and 8 others wounded. The senseless violence coming 1 year after a mass shooting took the lives of 7 at a parade in Highland Park, Illinois, where the community today marked a somber anniversary. With President Biden commemorating the attack at the White House, telling Americans, quote, the epidemic of gun violence is tearing this nation apart. And as the country celebrates its independence tonight, the deadly toll on America's streets continues. Mona Kosar Abdi has the latest for us from Philadelphia.
Tonight, authorities in Philadelphia describing a horrific scene as a gunman aimlessly opened fire on victims on the street and in their cars just a day before July 4th.
This armed and armored individual wreaked havoc, firing with a rifle at their victims, seemingly at random, shooting 7, killing 5, including children, babies.
Police responding around 8:30 p.m. Monday to reports of an armed person in the city's southwest section.
Multiple shots fired. All your shoes caution.
This surveillance footage obtained by ABC station WPVI appearing to show a person shooting near an intersection.
The suspect, while wearing body armor, a ski mask, and holding a AR-15 assault rifle, was observed at several locations.
Officers finding 4 shooting victims ages 15 to 59. 2 other children, ages 2 and 13, also shot in the leg, but in stable condition tonight.
They were taking active fire, scooping people up, trying to get them to the hospital to save them.
Police say officers engaged the shooter in an alley, but did not return fire. The suspect allegedly surrendering. Nearly 4 hours later, investigators called to a home where they say the body of a 5th victim was found.
We believe the deceased victim at the location inside of 1600 South 56th Street was the first shooting victim.
The rampage follows a wave of deadly violence over the July 4th weekend. Overnight in Fort Worth, Texas, police say a holiday event known as Como Fest ended with at least 3 people killed and 8 injured, including a child. In Highland Park, Illinois, hundreds joining a memorial walk to mark 1 year since a 19-year-old opened fire during a parade there, killing 7 and wounding dozens. Tonight, President Biden repeating calls for stricter gun reform, saying in a statement, quote, we pray for the day when our communities will be free from gun violence.
And Mona joins us now from Philadelphia. Mona, police say they're not identifying the suspect until they announce charges.
And that's right, Phil. So far, what we do know is that the suspect is a male in his 40s looking at multiple murder and weapons charges. Officers recovered at least 2 guns, additional ammunition, and a scanner from the scene, Phil.
Mona Kosar Abdi from Philadelphia tonight. Mona, thank you. And as we monitor those mass shootings unfolding on America's Independence Day, we've also witnessed moments of unity and resilience in the face of that terror over the last few days. And it shined brightly on the pitcher's mound at America's Family Field in Milwaukee, home of the Brewers, where a survivor of that Highland Park shooting showed a strength beyond his years. That's where Cooper Roberts, a 9-year-old from Highland Park who was paralyzed from the waist down, threw out the first pitch at the Cubs game alongside his family and others affected by the tragedy. Cooper's favorite player, Christian Yelich, was there, serving as catcher in what will be, no doubt, a pitch to remember. And while fireworks are how most Americans celebrate the day, millions may not get that luxury with severe storms and dangerous heat blanketing large parts of the country. Flood watches are in effect across the Northeast. Authorities say one person was struck by lightning on Coney Island, sending crowds ducking for cover. The storm even delayed the famed hot dog eating contest. So let's get right to ABC meteorologist Samara Theodore with more. Samara.
Phil, good evening. Yeah, you know, they actually saw 3 inches of rain fall in Coney Island. And with such a large amount of rain falling in such a short amount of time, this has led to flood alerts across the Northeast. Currently, we have flood watches as well as flash flood warnings in effect from Connecticut into Massachusetts. Meanwhile, more robust storms are bringing the threat for severe weather into the Midwest. A lot of these storms will be occurring at night, and this could impact the 4th of July festivities along with fireworks. Damaging winds, large hail, and the threat for isolated tornadoes all loom from Denver to Omaha, Sioux City, and as far north as Minneapolis. Tomorrow, many folks will be hitting the road and returning home, and that severe weather threat then shifts a bit farther south into areas like Oklahoma City and Jonesboro. As far as the heat goes, well, that has been a relentless story. We're looking at near record-breaking heat again as far north as Portland, and triple-digit heat index values spanning across much of the Southeast with no relief in sight. Phil?
All right, meteorologist Samara Theodore. Samara, thank you. For many Republican presidential candidates, July 4th is synonymous with the campaign trail. Several hitting the road this 4th, marching in parades in Iowa and New Hampshire. Meantime, President Biden celebrated the holiday at the White House, hosting a barbecue for military families. Here's Alex Perchet with the latest from the campaign trail.
Tonight, 2024 presidential candidates using the July 4th holiday to take their message to the American people.
Happy Independence Day.
Thank you.
Republican hopefuls getting their steps in, joining local parades in early primary states.
For me, it was vitally important to be here where the journey to the White House always begins, and to spend 2 miles, at times jogging uphill, to take our case to the people of Iowa.
Former Vice President Mike Pence feeling the heat in Iowa, braving 95-degree temperatures. Pressed about new allegations that former President Trump directed him to pressure Arizona's governor to find fraudulent votes during the 2020 election.
I didn't receive any pressure from President Trump other than to gather an update on what was happening in those states.
Sources telling ABC News Pence did call the governor but did not follow Trump's orders. Over in New Hampshire,
politics is a sport in New Hampshire, and if you don't do well in New Hampshire, you're in trouble.
Perry Johnson, Senator Tim Scott, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis among the candidates appealing to voters.
Freedom's been under assault in this country, and we need people to stand up and fight back, and that's exactly what we're doing here.
And at the White House, President Biden and the First Lady celebrating Independence Day with a barbecue, honoring active duty military and their families.
Democracy is never, never, never guaranteed. Every generation must fight to maintain it.
Biden trying to turn the page after a series of defeats handed down by the conservative majority Supreme Court last week.
Alex joins me now. Alex, while plenty of candidates, as you showed us, were out and about today, there was at least one noticeable absence.
That's right, Phil. Former President Trump noticeably absent from the campaign trail this holiday. His campaign, though, blasting those Arizona election allegations, calling them a witch hunt and saying that he did nothing wrong. Phil?
All right, Alex Perchet from D.C. tonight. Alex, thank you. And in Washington, the Secret Service made a surprising discovery inside the White House. Multiple law enforcement sources telling ABC News that suspicious white powder, possibly cocaine, was found in a work area of the West Wing while President Biden and the family were at Camp David. So let's get right to Karen Travers at the White House. Karen, what more do you know about this?
Phil, this is a very unusual incident here. The Secret Service is investigating how that substance got into the White House, and it's been sent to their lab for further testing. The substance, described as powdery and cocaine-like, was found in the West Wing on Sunday evening by Secret Service officers. The D.C. Fire Department was brought in to evaluate, and they quickly determined that it was non-hazardous. President Biden was not here at the time the substance was discovered, but they took this very seriously here at the White House. There was a partial evacuation of the area in the West Wing where that substance was discovered, and also the area nearby where White House reporters work. So far, White House officials are not commenting on this incident. Instead, they're referring all questions to the Secret Service. Phil?
Karen Travers from the White House tonight. Karen, thank you. So the 4th of July is one of the most exciting nights of the year, but it can also be one of the most dangerous. Authorities are investigating 2 deadly fireworks explosions in both Texas and Michigan, and fireworks actually burned homes to the ground in Colorado. ABC's Mola Lenghi has more.
Tonight, the ATF is investigating a deadly explosion in East Texas that killed 1 person and injured 4 others, the second fatal fireworks accident in less than 24 hours. In Michigan, a 43-year-old woman is dead and 9 others injured after fireworks exploded at a home Monday night. Neighbors describe hearing a series of booms.
That last one was just loud.
These 2 charred homes in Colorado destroyed by a massive fire, displacing 2 families and injuring a firefighter. Authorities say the fireworks were not thrown out correctly. Instead, left in a plastic bin outside a garage.
The best way is to get a bucket full of water and make sure that those fireworks are submersed.
Near Fresno, California, police say neighbors launched illegal fireworks, causing a nearby home to catch fire. Juan DeCachet says his children barely escaping.
The tree was on fire up there, and it just spread throughout the rest of the trees and the back of the house.
Laws differ from state to state, with most permitting at least some type of consumer fireworks. Massachusetts is the only state banning them outright.
Our thanks to Mola for that. And tonight, new video shows Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy throwing a woman to the ground outside of a grocery store, and it's sparking an investigation. We do want to warn you this video may be difficult to watch. In this cell phone video, the deputy is in a parking lot assisting in the arrest of a man when he approaches a woman who is recording him handcuff that individual near the grocery store. The woman tells the deputy not to touch her before the deputy, as you see, grabs her and slams her to the ground. Bystanders can be heard yelling for the deputy to stop. This happened June 24th in Lancaster, California, which is about 90 minutes north of Los Angeles. An activist group organizing a rally outside the store tomorrow says that woman was accused of stealing a cake. And authorities are investigating an horrific alligator attack in South Carolina. A 69-year-old woman was killed by a gator while walking her dog near a lagoon. These attacks are on the rise in certain parts of the country. ABC's Victor Akendo with details.
Tonight, an early morning dog walk turning deadly in South Carolina when an alligator attacked.
They're responding to a report of an elderly female in the lagoon. She is possibly deceased.
Authorities on Hilton Head Island say they found the body of a 69-year-old woman at the edge of a lagoon, guarded by that gator, getting in the way of rescue efforts.
It's kind of shocking, honestly.
I think the alligators sometimes get too comfortable with the people and vice versa.
Just weeks ago, this gator charging at a fisherman there. And last year, another fatal gator attack in a nearby retirement community. Authorities say an 88-year-old woman was killed while gardening at a lagoon near her home.
The alligator was basically holding her hostage.
And here in Florida, 13-year-old Gabriel Klimas fighting off a gator that bit his hip last month after a swim. That gator captured 2 days later.
I'm very thankful because I could have not been here right now.
Authorities are warning pet owners not to walk them near bodies of water prone to alligators. And experts say that in this part of South Carolina, the alligator population isn't growing, but more people are building on and moving closer to their habitats. Phil?
All right, Victor, thank you. Overseas in Israel, Israel is launching a new round of attacks on the West Bank, pushing forward with its largest military operation in more than 2 decades. And the violence is spilling over. At least 8 people were injured in a car and stabbing attack in Tel Aviv. Our Marcus Moore has the latest.
Tonight, the largest Israeli raid on the West Bank in decades, entering a new phase.
For a second day, the Israeli military launching drone strikes, targeting what they say is terrorist infrastructure in this refugee camp outside the city of Jenin. The electricity was out, this woman said. They struck our house. The situation is bad. Palestinian health authorities say at least 11 have been killed, with more than 100 others injured. Thousands of civilians fleeing, many to a local hospital, where Israeli forces fired tear gas, leaving the busy emergency room unusable, according to Doctors Without Borders. At least 5 of the dead have been claimed by terrorist organizations. Jenin at the center of the escalating tension in the region, and now the first sign of potential retaliation. This car ramming into people in Tel Aviv, injuring 8. He had a knife. He started chasing civilians, this man says. A bystander then shot and killed the driver. Hamas praising the attack, saying this is just the beginning of the terrorist group's response to the raid. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu observing his forces from a helicopter today, standing firm, saying whoever thinks such an attack will deter us from continuing our fight against terrorism is wrong.
Marcus joins me now. Marcus, what is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying about this tonight?
Phil, he said that they were close to finishing this campaign, but he warned that it would not be a one-time thing. Also, the Israeli Defense Force tells ABC News tonight that their withdrawal of troops from Jenin after nearly 48 hours, that is underway tonight. Phil.
All right, Marcus Moore, thank you. And in Russia tonight, the Kremlin is claiming it intercepted a drone attack targeting Moscow as Vladimir Putin makes his first appearance since that failed rebellion by the Wagner Group. Meantime, in Ukraine, President Zelensky wished Americans a, quote, happy 4th of July, saying, the one who stands with Ukraine stands for freedom. ABC's chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell reports tonight from Kyiv.
Tonight, video reposted by Ukrainian authorities showing another drone attack near Moscow. Russia accusing Ukraine of sending 5 fixed-wing drones, saying all were destroyed, but one reportedly targeting a military facility, Russia calling it terrorism. At a virtual meeting with allies today, Vladimir Putin not commenting on the strikes, but addressing that failed mutiny, insisting Russians are united. But Putin and Russia are facing setbacks on the battlefield. ABC News given rare access to Ukrainian villages near the front lines, recently liberated during the counter-offensive against Russian troops.
You see the signs of war everywhere around you. That's a Ukrainian armored vehicle moving towards the front lines, only around a couple of miles or so. Up until 3 weeks ago, this was Russian-occupied territory. And the flag that's now flying on top of the building tells you that this has now been liberated by Ukraine.
These videos given to ABC News by the 35th Marine Brigade, who've liberated villages on the southern front near Zaporizhia, assaulting Russian lines. The land heavily mined, the resistance fierce. We met the tank crews of the 35th. Sergei says our lives are always at risk, but morale is hardened. We want to kick them out of our land and go home to our families. But while Ukrainian forces make slow but steady gains, civilians continue to be attacked. A missile strike on a residential area in the northeast today, injuring more than 40, including a dozen children.
Our thanks to Ian Pannell from Kyiv tonight. There is still much more to get to here on Prime. Coming up, some scary moments for passengers on a roller coaster when it gets stuck, leaving them hanging upside down. How many hours they waited before being rescued. But up next, it's one of the most elite jobs in the Navy, the band. An inside look at why some of the best musicians in the world are using their talents for their country.
For me, it's gratifying as an immigrant to give back to the country that, took me in.
I got the music in me. I got the music in me. I got the music in me.
Whenever news breaks.
The crush of families here in Poland.
Here in Kentucky, no match for the tornado.
From Monterey Park, California, on the ground in Ukraine.
Reporting from Uvalde, Texas. ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
From the scene of that deadly missile strike in Dnipro, Ukraine.
Reporting from the earthquake in Turkey.
From Charleston, South Carolina, on the 2024 campaign trail.
From Kathmandu, Nepal.
In Truckee, California, covering record snowfall.
Traveling with the president in Mexico City.
Wherever the story,
here at this airport in Tampa, it's already shut down.
Reporting from the nurses on the picket line.
Reporting from Jerusalem.
Here at 10 Downing Street in London.
Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is, we're going to take you there.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live. Streaming free everywhere. America's #1 streaming news.
With so much happening these days, it's hard to keep up.
Things change hour by hour, minute by minute.
The historic weather that's now unfolding.
The worries on Wall Street.
We're bringing you the Right Now. Been a nationwide teacher shortage.
The Right Now look at the day ahead. An alert this morning for dog owners and the key takeaways from the biggest stories.
World News Now and America This Morning, America's #1 early morning news.
Today does feel a little different. Early mornings on ABC News Live.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you? Yeah.
So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 2 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
Welcome back. They are some of the best musicians in America, and they are also serving our country. So on this 4th of July, we're going to take you behind the scenes with members of the U.S. Navy Band in Washington, D.C. It's tonight's Prime Focus.
These cats are really good at what they do. It's magic to have such a band that's so tight that could read each other to get through these songs.
Here at the United States Navy Band in Washington, D.C., we really do hire the finest musicians from around the country.
Spread a little happiness, spread a little love.
Each one of our auditions is a national audition, very much like a major symphony orchestra.
I ended up doing my undergrad degree at the University of Georgia, and then I moved to Connecticut, where I got 2 graduate degrees at the Yale School of Music. From there, I went to Chicago to join the Civic Orchestra of Chicago. After that, I came to DC to be part of the Navy Band.
I got into the program and I shipped off to boot camp, I think later that year. So I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. I was previously in Navy Band Great Lakes up in Chicago, Illinois, before I got to this band in Washington.
In the Navy, we have just over 600 total musicians, and here at the United States Navy Band in Washington, D.C., we have 174. We provide presidential musical support. That's the primary mission. We provide support for all engagements that would happen at the White House. We also provide all musical support for our veterans who are laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery, and that's a mission that we take very seriously. Then in addition to that, we go on national tour with each of our groups every year. So that is where we go out and we tell the Navy's story and what these sailors are doing for our nation around the world.
One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go.
I remember sitting in on a rehearsal before I actually played, right after boot camp. It just gave me chills.
These positions in Washington, D.C. and the Naval Academy are very specific. Sometimes these jobs don't open up for like 20 or so years. Many musicians stay here until they retire.
It is a premier musical institution. It's a collection of some of the finest musicians that exist in the country, all in one space. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. And it is our duty to continue that tradition and then move that legacy forward.
Because the world has evolved, we have adjusted. We play all kinds of music: punk, pop, funk, jazz, you know, R&B, hip hop.
All the different styles of music that you hear here at the United States Navy Band, they reflect America at large.
For me, it's gratifying as an immigrant to give back to the country that, you know, took me in.
Having done this job for 34 years, it's incredibly fulfilling to serve with something that is so meaningful to oneself. Performing music, for me, is something that is just inherent, something that I will do all my life.
The United States Navy.
But being able to perform music for a purpose that is greater than what I am is ever more meaningful.
Our national tour that we just went on, it was so fun to perform every single night for new crowds, for packed audiences. We played God Bless America at the end of every performance on this tour we did. And one venue, I can't remember exactly where it was, one person started standing up towards the beginning of the song, and then the whole audience was standing up during God Bless America. It was so emotional to see everyone being so moved by our performance. It was really cool to see the impact that we're making on the country and the people that we're playing for.
Our spectacular musicians serving our country in their own unique way. And on this 4th of July, we thank them all for their service. Still ahead here on Prime, a missing hiker is found alive. The harrowing ordeal she experienced for days before rescuers found her. The series of recent shark encounters putting swimmers on edge, the technology being used to track the underwater predators. Plus, whether it's at home with family or traveling with friends, millions are celebrating today. We're going to take a look at the 4th of July by the numbers.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
In Putin's Russia.
on the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
From the capital. Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
From America's #1 news comes the all-new ABC News app. Breaking news, incredible video, faster, smarter, and customizable to your interests. If you love being in the know, you're gonna love this. Experience the all-new ABC News app. Download it now.
I came out of jail with a plan. I was gonna put every piece of energy I had into music.
Give it up for Jelly Roll!
If I wasn't a musician, I'd be dead. This was my best bet to really have an impact. I'll cry with you. Who'd have thought I could help people? I needed help, you know, I still need help.
Somebody save me. I love you.
With
so much happening these days, it's hard to keep up.
Things change hour by hour, minute by minute.
The historic weather that's now unfolding.
The worries on Wall Street.
We're bringing you the Right Now. But a nationwide teacher shortage.
The Right Now look at the day ahead.
An alert this morning for dog owners.
And the key takeaways from the biggest stories.
World News Now and America This Morning, America's #1 early morning news.
Today does feel a little different.
Early mornings on ABC News Live.
You never know what you're going to get on this show. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Yes, Whoopi! This mic on? Can you hear me out there?
Behind the scenes is always a better show.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what people don't see during the commercial breaks. Right, they don't. What happened?
I had no idea really what I was getting myself into.
That day that we walked out, I treasured that day. I couldn't sit there.
You're doing good, Joy. You're doing good.
Oh, yeah, baby. It was crazy.
Behind the Table. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
When I got sent to Idaho to cover the murders of 4 college students, it was a story that didn't make any sense. 4 students stabbed to death in their beds while 2 roommates were home.
You gotta think to yourself, okay, who's the target and how many people would a man go through to get to his target?
I'm Kana Whitworth with ABC News. This is the story of savage murders, a determined small-town police force, and a scholar of crime. This is The King Road Killings, a new podcast from ABC Audio. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
This is where the newsmakers come first in the morning to be heard. America's #1 morning show.
How would your mom feel about your relationship with your brother now?
I can't imagine what it feels like to go from $20 billion to $100,000. Yeah. Are you worried about going to jail?
You write that you had low-grade depression. How'd you get out of that?
Wherever the story, ABC's Good Morning America is right there.
Reporting from the earthquake in Turkey, I'm David Muir. Wherever the story, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Welcome back. On this 4th of July, we are counting down the ways we celebrate our nation's birthday by the numbers. It's the country's 247th birthday, and Americans are out enjoying the holiday. 106 million Americans are expected to attend one of the roughly 16,000 fireworks displays all across the country, and we're spending more than $2 billion on our own pyrotechnics. But be careful. Last year, more than 10,000 people ended up in the hospital from firework injuries. 11 people died. More than 45 million people are expected to enjoy 4th of July parades, and more than 217 million Americans are going to be barbecuing, spending on average $93 on food. That's according to the National Retail Federation. And that includes about 150 million hot dogs and about $3 billion worth of beer. And before you fill up that gas tank to head home, if you live near one of the 675 Sheetz convenience store and gas stations in the U.S., gas is just $17.76 all day, or $1.77.6 per gallon to be exact. That's amazing. It's to mark the year the Declaration, of course, the Independence, was signed. And that is something we can all celebrate today. There's much more ahead here on Prime. Twitter versus Meta, the new app that could increase competition between the social networks. And it wouldn't be the 4th without Nathan's hot dog eating contest. So who took home the top prize this year? But first, a look at our top trending stories on abcnews.com.
What does it take to be America's #1 news? It takes asking the straightforward, tough questions.
Do you believe that Donald Trump should ever be president again?
How would your mom feel about your relationship with your brother now?
I can't imagine what it feels like to go from $20 billion to $100,000. Yeah. Are you worried about going to jail?
You write that you had low-grade depression. How'd you get out of that?
The news-making interviews.
You said that there were 6 friends. One of them was sick.
Yeah.
Do you have future political aspirations?
Going to the front line.
The search for survivors.
How does this war end?
And getting to the heart of the story.
Thank you for being here. We'll be here for the long run.
ABC News, #1 in the morning, the #1 newscast, #1 in daytime talk, Friday nights, Sunday mornings versus the competition, and the #1 streaming news. Thank you for making ABC News America's trusted, straightforward first choice.
With so much happening these days, it's hard to keep up.
Things change hour by hour, minute by minute.
The historic weather that's now unfolding.
The worries on Wall Street.
We're bringing you the Right Now. Been a nationwide teacher shortage.
The Right Now look at the day ahead. An alert this morning for dog owners and the key takeaways from the biggest stories.
World News Now and America This Morning, America's #1 early morning news.
Today does feel a little different. Early mornings on ABC News Live.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
In Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
From the capital.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
We're along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7, straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
When I got sent to Idaho to cover the murders of 4 college students, it was a story that didn't make any sense. 4 students stabbed to death in their beds while 2 roommates were home.
You gotta think to yourself, okay, who's the target and how many people would a man go through to get to his target?
I'm Kana Whitworth with ABC News. This is the story of savage murders, a determined small-town police force, and a scholar of crime. This is The King Road Killings, a new podcast from ABC Audio. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Get ready, America, every Friday.
The hottest trends, styles, and must-have. What's the right stuff to buy right now? I really love that. It's time to buy the right stuff.
Yes!
And save big time, too.
The right stuff.
Fridays on GMA. You're going to love it.
This is ABC News Live Prime.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Live reporting, breaking news, exclusives, award-winning, powerful, eye-opening. ABC News Live Prime with Lindsay Davis. Streaming weeknights.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
Yeah. So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do? Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 2 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
Moments for riders on a roller coaster when it gets stuck upside down. The ordeal a missing hiker went through for days until rescuers found her, and the winners are crowned in the July 4th tradition, Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest. Those stories and more in tonight's rundown.
This is just scary. They've been up there for an hour.
A nightmarish situation for these riders on the Fireball. The looping ride at the Forest County Festival in Crandon, Wisconsin became stuck because of a mechanical issue, leaving the 8 riders stranded upside down for hours Sunday. The Crandon Fire Department said the rescue required multiple departments to assist and that the last rider came down after just under 4 hours. The fire department said a total of 9 patients were treated by EMS.
There's good news outside Boston. A woman who was missing for more than a week has been found in a swamp. Authorities say she got stuck in the mud inside a park. Hikers calling 911 after hearing her screams.
The woman, identified as Emma Tatuski, was rescued and taken to a local hospital for observation. Officials said she may have been stuck for as long as 3 days before being found by the hikers.
Hotel workers in Southern California are continuing to strike over pay and benefits. Workers ranging from housekeepers to cooks and front desk agents have been picketing, demanding better wages, retirement, and health care.
One large hotel came to an agreement with the union, but others remain in negotiations after the workers' contract expired over the weekend.
The company behind Facebook and Instagram is now setting its sights on Twitter to reportedly launch a Twitter competitor on Thursday.
Meta calls it Threads and says it's Instagram's text-based conversation app. It's a new app for the company that's expected to compete with microblogging sites like Twitter. The app would link with the user's Instagram account, giving Threads a massive user base to tap into. Threads is already on Apple's App Store for pre-order. The oldest living survivor of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre is telling her story. Viola Ford Fletcher was 7 years old when a white mob destroyed Tulsa's Black Wall Street area. Now, 109, she has fought for reparations in recent years, including testifying before Congress in 2021. Fletcher's new book, Don't Let Them Bury My Story, will include her own memories of the massacre and how it has impacted her life since then. The book will be widely available on August 15th.
At the Nathan's 4th of July hot dog eating contest, Nikki Sudo and Joey Chestnut were once again top dogs. Sudo defended her title in the women's division with 39.5 hot dogs. And while storms and lightning over New York's Coney Island forced the men to wait a few more hours, it was Chestnut once again.
Joey Chestnut!
The defending champ ate 62 hot dogs in 10 minutes. It's his 8th straight win and 16th overall.
A new shark warning is out tonight as beach season is in full swing. A teenager in New York is recovering after being bitten while surfing, and shark sightings and encounters are becoming more frequent. New drone video shows a school of sand sharks. At least 50 of them were spotted off the coast of Robert Moses State Park Beach in New York. Now beaches are adding more lifeguards on patrol and drones in the sky, all to keep swimmers safe. ABC's Will Reeve with more.
A series of shark encounters putting swimmers on edge. In Navarre Beach, Florida, a shark spotted swimming close to dozens of people Monday. Lifeguards immediately evacuating the area.
The shark clearly was trying to feed on a school of fish, and it made its way back out and down the coast.
Meanwhile, in New York, a 15-year-old surfer bitten off Fire Island around 5:20 p.m. Monday.
I'm going to need you to respond for a 10-9 shark attack. Rescue's been notified.
Police telling ABC News the shark latched onto the teen's heel and toes, but he was able to make it to shore, where a Good Samaritan jumped in to help until Marine Bureau officers could arrive.
He ends up getting bitten, which we believe could be either a tiger or a sand shark. He's still being treated, just being under examinations by the physicians.
The Suffolk County Police Commissioner promising to step up patrols.
This has turned into like a little bit of concern for this county. We're going to make sure that we use all our resources and work with other partners from our fire department to our Coast Guard to make sure we do a thorough job of checking the waterways, keeping an eye out on any of these sharks that seem to be getting closer and closer to our shores.
The attack, the first off Long Island this season, and the latest after a string of incidents caught on camera. This 12-year-old girl paddleboarding in Florida's Cocoa Beach when a shark latched onto her leg, biting her multiple times, leading to stitches. Last year, 8 separate attacks putting New York on high alert. The governor's office now deploying drones across beaches to try to prevent encounters. Farther up the coast, Cape Cod becoming a great white hotbed. Multiple sharks recently spotted in the area, and seals turning up with bite marks.
It's a sign that for sure the white sharks have arrived. There are a large number of white sharks that do stop in Cape Cod as they migrate north because there's a tremendous seal population there.
Experts warn great whites gather in the area from June through October. Around the same time, more than 3 million people flock to the Cape.
When you go to the beach this summer, you want to understand the system you're playing in. You want to look at it and make sure you're not swimming out into the middle of the food chain.
Our thanks to Will Reeve. And across the country, many will be celebrating this 4th of July with fireworks tonight, but some cities are actually starting a new tradition using drone light shows instead. ABC's Janae Norman has a story on why some communities are making that switch.
It's the 4th of July tradition being blown up by technology. Drone shows replacing fireworks displays in parts of the country. Drones already drowning out fireworks at this year's Super Bowl and multiple New Year celebrations. The alternative choice is a costly one. A small drone show could come with a big price tag, upwards of $20,000, compared to less than half that for fireworks. But in cities coast to coast, already blanketed by smoke and plagued by some of the worst air pollution, pyrotechnics are being seen as a less explosive idea.
Thousands of Americans are going to look up into the night sky this July 4th and see something they've never seen before, and that's a drone show. Drone shows are safer, they are more energy efficient, and they're less noisy than fireworks. So I think you might see drone shows either replace or accompany fireworks.
In California, the North Shore of Lake Tahoe and La Jolla are both opting for 4th of July drone shows. Boulder, Colorado, citing climate change-fueled fire dangers as the reason for drones there. And Salt Lake City officials saying the city is choosing drones to be conscientious of both our air quality and the potential for wildfires.
Our thanks to Janae for that. There is a new book out about the future of medicine, and ABC's Ashan Singh has a very special connection to the doctor who wrote it. His father, Dr. Jag Singh's book, Future Care, takes a look at the technological revolution happening in the healthcare industry and how we can all best prepare. Here is their conversation.
Pops, yo, what's going on? It's all good, man.
How do you interview someone who knows you better than you know yourself?
How you feeling? I'm feeling good, feeling good. This is pretty weird, right? It is very weird.
Meet my dad, Dr. Jag Singh, professor of medicine and cardiologist at Mass General Hospital in Boston. For years, Pops has been looking at the world of healthcare and its relationship with technology from a bird's eye view. And now he's decided to detail what he calls an imminent revolution in his new book, Future Care.
What does that overhaul actually look like to you?
So I think the future of healthcare, honestly, is going to be sensor-aided, powered by artificial intelligence or predictive analytics that can translate into better outcomes and really become a part of our day-to-day care delivery.
A new world where we're monitoring our bodies digitally. He hopes for a future where surgery isn't necessary.
What will it look like instead?
There are many disease processes that we have graduated towards now treating with medication and don't require surgery anymore. And I think that's the direction we eventually have to go towards.
He says between wearable sensors like an Apple Watch or Fitbit and new technology like augmented and virtual reality, the revolution is already happening.
What are some concrete steps that people at home can take to be ready for this new wave in healthcare?
It's important that patients primarily be more interested in their health. That's one. And for that, there are a slew of variables now that allow us to kind of keep a check on our wellness situation. They're not cheap. And I think there's this fear of creating or worsening the digital divide between the haves and have-nots. And I think this is where the government, the regulatory bodies, the hospitals, the clinicians have to really think about innovative strategies to come up with low-cost approaches to provide care for patients who are disenfranchised.
This book, and me on camera with my pops, a full circle moment for my family, who came to this country from India when I was just a kid.
You came to this country in the 90s with mom, with the little me, and I'm curious, man, could you have ever imagined 30 years later that your son would be interviewing you about your debut book for national TV?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, this is just unimaginable. An extraordinarily proud moment for me, for both of us to be sitting here in the Ether Dome having a conversation, but I am filled with pride.
And we thank Ashan and his dad for that interview. We are tracking several headlines around the world at this hour. Masked assailants in Chechnya brutally attacked a prominent Russian investigative reporter and a lawyer as they had arrived to attend a trial there. The vehicle of Elena Milashina and Alexander Nemov was reportedly blocked near the airport where masked attackers beat them. Milashina, doused with green dye and her hair shaved. She reportedly suffered a brain injury and damage to her hands in that attack. She has received death threats in the past from Chechnya's notorious leader. Taliban rulers have ordered that beauty salons in Afghanistan must close now within a month. It's according to the Morality Ministry. It's just the latest in growing restrictions on women since the Taliban's 2021 takeover of the country after the withdrawal of U.S. forces. And Japan has cleared a major hurdle to release radioactive water from its tsunami-wrecked Fukushima nuclear plant into the ocean. The UN's nuclear watchdog approved that plan after a 2-year review with China and some nearby residents among those opposing it. An earthquake and tsunami in 2011 knocked out power at Fukushima, triggering meltdowns at 3 of its reactors. Surfing has a history and heritage in Hawaii revered by so many in spiritual terms. But then along came Hollywood, and not everyone is ready to ride the pop culture wave. ABC's Becky Worley with that story.
Surfing That's our church because that's where we spiritually can connect to something that was always there as Native Hawaiians. I feel connected to my ancestors. I feel connected to my culture. Like, our culture goes way beyond just language, dance.
You could say Ha'akeolana was born with surfing in her blood. Her grandfather, Buffalo Keaulana, was a surfing legend. Ha'a's first memory of surfing is being on a board with him.
Since we were just little babies, before we could walk, we were here in the water. My grandfather was just always a waterman. He was raised in a time where a lot of our culture got taken away. You weren't allowed to speak our language, and sometimes some people couldn't even hula dance, and so that got lost. So I think naturally, he just always connected to his culture through being a waterman in the ocean.
The 26-year-old represents a growing movement of Native Hawaiians celebrating and reclaiming the spirit of surfing that they say has been co-opted by pop culture and commercialized.
Being a Native Hawaiian, we were always raised to know that the Aina, the ocean, we respect it like an elder.
But in Hollywood, surfing has been portrayed as California cool. We're talking about films like Point Break and Surfer Dude.
I'm a surfer, dude.
Or in music, like the Beach Boys hit song, Surfin' USA. But drawings from Western explorers back in the 17 and 1800s show surfing traces its roots all the way back to ancient Hawaii.
You have the documentation of the Westerners arriving in the late 1700s, and they were amazed by these things. There's these accounts where they're like, people would do these death-defying acts on these pieces of wood in waves that sailors were terrified of. The watermen of the West would never even attempt it, and these were like young women doing it, and it just blew their minds, literally.
The curators at Bishop Museum in Honolulu bringing out precious artifacts like boards that weigh over 100 pounds, or this one from the 1700s.
So this board is possibly the oldest board in the world.
The mass arrival of Westerners in the 1800s challenged native indigenous culture, with Hawaiians going to work in the sugarcane fields, and then surfing dwindled. Until this man came along, over 100 years later. Native Hawaiian Duke Kahanamoku was a 3-time swimming champion in the 1912 and 1920 Olympics, promoting Hawaii and surfing while traveling the globe.
How do you perceive the importance of Duke Kahanamoku?
He was the fastest man in the water. He was the Michael Phelps of his time. He was also an avid surfer in a time when there wasn't a lot of surfing happening in Hawaii.
And boy, did Duke's advocacy work. Now millions surf and millions more buy into surfing culture, from the lifestyle to the clothing associated with the sport, like Quicksilver and Billabong.
The ocean for us is part of our heritage, part of our culture, part of our tradition.
Clyde Aikau is modern Hawaiian surfing royalty.
See it with Clyde right here.
He and his late brother, surfing legend Eddie Aikau, saved hundreds in the 1960s as the first lifeguards in Waimea Bay.
He was just the brightest star out there.
His story told in this ESPN 30 for 30 documentary, Hawaiian, the legend of Eddie Aikau. Eddie was lost at sea trying to save his friends after their voyaging canoe capsized in the open ocean.
To save someone's life and put your life in jeopardy is what Eddie did and is what we do. We never lost one person in 10 years.
Wow.
We didn't have any jet skis. All we had was fins and a surfboard.
Wow.
The surfing legend still honored with the iconic Eddie Aikau Big Wave Invitational on Oahu's North Shore.
Surfing is a place we go for a peace of mind. For us, it's always been someplace sacred.
He says it's a culture that's now big business.
From a cultural tradition of surfing, going back hundreds and hundreds of years to our royalty, fast forward to today, 2023, it's been turned into a make-money deal.
Surfing's estimated to be over a $4 billion industry. How much of that benefit do you think Hawaiians reap?
Zero. Zero.
But some Hawaiians are riding the wave of surfing's future.
Well, here we go. Carissa Moore.
The sport debuted in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Native Hawaiian Carissa Moore
off the bottom. Good slash right there.
Taking home the gold. She's now taking her place next to Duke in surfing history and inspiring a new generation.
It was a really huge deal to Native Hawaiians that Carissa brought home the gold, and we are so proud of her.
So as people like Ha'a shared this amazing sport with the rest of the world, myself included, the spiritual connection to Hawaii's history is not lost on its youth.
As a Native Hawaiian, I think being in the water, whether it be diving, surfing, sailing, anything in the water, that's me connecting to my people and our culture.
Our thanks to Becky Worley for that. And finally tonight, as we celebrate Independence Day, we are thinking of our servicemen and women, many of whom are dealing with trauma after their time in the military. One organization is helping post-9/11 veterans find purpose and peace in an unexpected way through fly fishing. ABC's Stephanie Ramos with the story.
Okay, so try and lift and then give a good.
Yep. Shannon Thomas is learning to fly fish in beautiful southwest Montana, but she's not on vacation. She's on a life-changing expedition into nature and self through the Warriors in Quiet Waters Foundation. Give a little line. A charity for some of the 200,000 post-9/11 veterans seeking to help injured souls find their new mission, life after service.
It's therapeutic being out here. Just the sound of the moving water and the nature around you makes you realize that you're kind of, you're part of like a huge picture.
It hasn't been an easy road for 36-year-old Shannon. She joined the Air Force in 2006 and was in the service for 6 years with 3 tours in the Middle East.
We were flying into all different places around the country, picking up men that had been killed in action. So that stuck with me. And I kind of had a lot of survivor's guilt for a long time after that.
Shannon is not alone. There are 2 million female veterans in the United States, and just like men, many of them suffer after service. Nearly half of returning veterans will find their transition to civilian life difficult. While PTSD and suicidal thoughts are common, so is living with a lack of peace and purpose. And there are few places to turn for help.
And it's not just a trip to Montana fly fishing. We give them the tools and the resources to recognize the changes that they need to make and to pursue those changes over time to really thrive and be resilient in their lives.
Would you say that the program was a lot more helpful because you were surrounded by women?
Definitely. I think it's really important for veterans, especially women veterans, to stick together because I just think we're better when we bond together.
This week's group of warriors, as they are called, are all women, spending 5 days fly fishing, bonding, and reflecting on meaning in their lives.
Did you learn anything new about yourself?
I think I learned that I'm definitely living my purpose by, being out there, disclosing my story to others, being in Montana, being in that scenery, and being with other women veterans. It really made me see the strength that I still possess.
Yeah, getting the support they earned and deserve. Our thanks to Stephanie Ramos for that. And that is our show for tonight. I'm Phil Lipoff. ABC News Live is here with you all night with the latest news, context, and analysis. You can also find us on Hulu, Roku, the ABC News app, and of course, abcnews.com. Have a safe and happy 4th of July.
This is ABC News Live Prime.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Live reporting, breaking news, exclusives,